Hello friends, welcome back. We are discussing Domain 2 Asset Security in CISSP syllabus. And this Domain 2 is covered in Chapter 5 and Chapter 16 in Cybex 9th edition book. The topic of discussion today is the three key terms which we use in data protection methods when in the context of PII, personally identifiable information. So the data which we deal in any organization or any company, be it a private company or a government organization, may or may not contain sensitive data which is related with any individual or the health data or the data which is governed by general privacy laws. Now, to make the data useful in a way that we don't violate any privacy law, we deploy certain methods to sensitize the data before we produce this data to other company, general public, or even if we use the data in real time. What are these key terms? These are pseudonymizations, tokenization, and anonymization. So that there is a slight difference between these three categories, and it's really important for us that we understand this difference. And if we really understand the difference, it will be really helpful for us to answer the tricky, difficult questions related to data protection and PII. Let's start. As we all know that in our day-to-day life, we deal with a lot of data. When we are driving a car, we just drive a car, but we don't know the internal details of the car, like the transmission, the dynamics, how it is moving, or the electricity or the ignition. So those details we don't know. We deal with the car with some data, which is how to drive the car basically on an abstraction, right? So that's one way to deal with the one way to put some analogy in the different data sets we use in our day-to-day life. Another example could be that if you are standing on a very tall building and if you drop up a stone, the stone hits the ground, and based on our experience or calculation, we know that how much time it will take for the stone to hit the ground. But if we look really carefully, there is a fine natural law which acts on the stone. There is a fine mathematical equation which governs how much time it will take, with what speed it will hit the ground, and with what acceleration it will actually descend down. So we are not interested in those data. We are just interested in knowing how much time the stone hit it will take for a stone to hit the ground. That's also an abstracted layer of thinking. Now, to remove the PII from the data is thinking from that abstraction mindset, right? So if you are having a data, which is, let's take an example of a hospital or pathological laboratory. Like there are people who are coming from blood test, CT scan, another test, medical test. Now, if there's a research going on, in that research, it's required that we should have the data on number of patients which is visiting for the test in the lab. Now, that data do not require us to know into the individual details of the patient, like what is the first name, last name, what was the test outcome, how much was the blood cholesterol level, and all those details. So the company here, in this case, medical, like the hospital or the lab, they can produce the data by hiding, by making a pseudonyms, like the person, if his name was Rakesh Kumar or Rashid Siddiqui, they can use the name something like AB345. They can make a pseudonym of the data, and still the data is there. The data can be pseudonymed, so that we don't know that these reports or these details are related with which specific person. So then we actually kind of evaporated the PII sensitive items from the data. Now this data can be used in variety of ways, and since we have made the pseudonyms of the real subject of the data, this method is called pseudonymization. Now in pseudonymization, there is a mapping tool or mapping table which exists, which can be used to trace back to what was the original data, like what was the original person. That's why it's not 100% GDPR compliant when we make pseudonyms. There are some business cases where we need pseudonyms, and we need to keep the record of the mapping between real pseudonym data. Now, if we do something with the data in a way that we deliberately do not maintain the mapping between pseudonym and the real data, then the data which is produced with pseudonym is totally anonymous. Like we can't trace it back. This pseudonym refers to which person. So this process is called anonymization. So in anonymization, either the mapping is lost or you just do some sort of randomization in the data so that only the end data, which is the aggregated data or the summarized data, which is going to be used by a third party or some process, that data is intact. Like if you take an average of the height of people, right, the average will remain same if you scramble the individual rows. So that kind of data is totally anonymized. It can be anonymized using data masking, or it can be anonymized using randomized masking. So these are two subtopics of data anonymization. Now this is pseudonymization and anonymization. As you can see, anonymized data is something which is nearly impossible to regenerate in its original form. So here the GDPR restrictions will not apply in that force as it will be applied in the pseudonymization. Now tokenization, on the other hand, is not used for the purpose like the way pseudonymization and anonymization data is used. So the difference between tokenization and rest of the method is the purpose. In tokenization, we are making a token of a data which contains PII, but what happens is basically the data is going to be used in real time. The data is going to be used in some process or some business purpose where we should know the real data and the token itself. So in that case, tokenization will be used. In tokenized data cannot be made anonymous. Pseudonyms can be created in tokenized data, but the mapping of pseudonym and the real data should be available with the party who is processing the data. And this is very common in e-commerce application, like the application where you have contactless card payment system. So in that system, the token is generated for the credit card detail, and it goes to the bank, and bank verifies it. But the bank is having access to the token and the real data as well. And it says that, okay, now this customer is having enough balance, it's okay to proceed with the payment, and the payment happens. Imagine if the token is made anonymous, then bank has no way to verify the data, right? So because the input which it will feed to the database to find a customer will not find a match. So this is the basic difference. The purpose separates tokenization and pseudonymization and anonymization. Pseudonyms are just pseudonyms, like you can, like I'm Rashid Siddiqui, my pseudonym could be something like FBI 001, CISSP 123. This is pseudonym, and if there is a mapping. But in anonymized data, there is no mapping, it's just a random thing. So when in exam the question comes, which is the best in terms of restricting the PII information, the answer. It's anonymization is the best method. Pseudonymization is the second best method. Tokenization is a method which you can't compare with all these two, because the purpose of tokenization is different, and that purpose is real-time processing of the pseudonyms, or the real-time processing of the data which relates with some real data. I hope this video has been useful, and it will definitely help you in CISSP exam. For similar content, you can subscribe to my channel. If you like this video, put a thumbs up, and I hope to see you again in my next video. Thanks for watching.